Now let's use our knowledge of UV mapping to map something a little bit more complex, and that would be this character that we've been working on. So let's go ahead and get this character set up and the rough UV mapping applied, and then we'll fine tune it. I'm going to select my character here, and the first thing I'm going to do is turn off subdivision surfaces. It'll make it a lot easier to apply these maps. So I'm going to go to my modify panel here, find my modifier, which is my subdivision surface, and go ahead and click off the visibility here. We can turn this on later. Now this character already has a material applied, and let's go ahead and go over to textures and apply the texture. So I'm going to hit new, create a slot for that texture. Under type, we're going to add in an image and open that image, and it's going to be called body1.jpg. Now, once it's there, we also should probably change our coordinates from generated to UV. And do a quick render, and obviously we need to do some work here. So let's go into UV edit mode. Probably the easiest way to get there is to go into the UV edit layout from the standard layouts here. And we've got our character and a UV editor. Now, before we actually get into this UV editor, we need to set up the seams on our character. So we need to unwrap the character, and in order to unwrap it, we need to tell Blender where the seams are. So if you think about it, probably the easiest way to visualize where the seams need to go is to think of this character as a stuffed animal. And how would you do a pattern for a stuffed animal? Well, if I were going to do it, I would go ahead and create a front and a back and then do the arms separately as well. So let's go into edit mode. And to create the seams, we need to be in edge mode. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off X-ray here so we can see exactly what we're doing. And I want to make sure that I'm in edge mode here. And so I want to select this edge loop. So I can do that by hitting Alt and right-clicking on that edge loop. Now I want this to go around to the arms, but I really want the arms to be separate. But actually it's easier to make this all a seam and then remove the seam from the arm. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Mesh, Edges, Mark Seam. So now I have a seam all the way around that character, but now I want to go ahead and unmark the arms. So I'm going to go into my front view here, and I'm going to deselect everything and then just do a lasso select of each arm. And now I've selected all of the edges on that arm here, but we can just go ahead and clear that out. So I'm just going to go Edges, Clear Seam. And when I've done that, now you can see how it's pretty much cleared out all the seams except for these two little nubs here. So I'm going to go ahead and shift select these on both sides. And again, just do a clear seam. Let me show you a little shortcut here. If I hit Control E, I can pull up that edge menu and just do a clear seam that way. So now I have everything but these little rings around the arm. So I can just go ahead and hit Shift and right click on these to select the areas around the arm on both sides. Now that I have both of these selected, again, we're going to do Mark Seam. So now that I have these seams marked, I can now start to unwrap my character. So I'm going to go into face mode, select everything, Mesh, UV unwrap, unwrap. And now that puts it out into my UV editor. Now you see I have 4 little groups of faces here. In fact, if we click on this little button here, this allows us to select each one of these groups of faces here. But before we do that, let's go ahead and put the image in so that way we can lay this against our texture map. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Open Image, body-1.jpg. And now that we've opened it, you can see how I've got all of these against that. And all I have to do is fit these to this image. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn on textured in my perspective viewport here so we can see how this fits. Now before we do that, let's go ahead and fix the arms. When we unwrap the arms, you can see how it unwrapped them from kind of a bad angle. So let's go ahead and select those particular faces and unwrap them in a different way. So I'm going to go ahead into X-ray mode here, and I'm going to make sure I'm still in face mode. I'm going to deselect everything by hitting A, and then I'm going to control left click to lasso select both the left and right side, and I want to get up to there, so all I have to do is hit Control plus to add some more in there. And so now that I have these, all I have to do is do mesh, unwrap, cylinder projection, and what that does is it, again, unwraps them as if they were a cylinder. So now when I select everything, you can see how each one of these is unwrapped pretty flat, and now I can start tweaking these in the UV editor. And we're going to do that in the next lesson.